Hi, and welcome back to a new 5-part series of Cooking with Nick. I'm Nick Rizzo, and during this session, I will show you with a little pre-planning how to produce a 4-course, delicious and healthy meal in under an hour. So sit back, relax, grab a pencil and paper to take notes so you can make this meal at home. My class is ready, and they look hungry, so I have to get started. Tonight we're going to be working on marsala, pork marsala. You can do the same recipe with chicken if you want, or veal. Okay, the sauce is the same no matter what, and the process is the same. The first thing you'll be eating is the soup. Okay, and remember you have to serve yourself. I do not serve you, I will cook for you, but you have to get up and serve yourself. Okay, try to keep your spoon because you'll need it for the dessert. So we're going to have pork marsala is going to be the entree. We're going to have a side of couscous salad. Has anybody never had couscous? Okay. Okay, couscous is a very small little pasta. There's 2 different sizes you can get, and I'll show you when we get to that portion of it. Takes about 3 minutes to cook. Okay, and then you add vegetables and we're going to use a lemon vinaigrette dressing, and you're ready to go for a nice side dish. You can make that way ahead, put it in your refrigerator. You can do it in the morning and serve it at night. Okay, so it's a real shortcut. This is a meal that's a real easy, quick go-to meal if you have people coming. You know, you can make the dessert ahead, you can make the side ahead, you could do the pork or the chicken, most of it ahead of time, and just reheat it. And of course, you make the soup ahead of time. So you can do everything way ahead. You can make the soup, you could freeze it. This is another one of those soups that freezes real well. Okay, so you can make a big batch and then freeze it. It's also, the soup is totally vegetarian. I'm going to use vegetable stock instead of chicken stock. You can use chicken stock if you like that, or if you have that hanging around your house, okay? But we'll use vegetable stock for that. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the second page. We're going to start with the dessert, which is my version of a quick tortoni ice cream dessert, okay? When my wife and I used to own the Stockton Hotel many, many years ago, this was our house dessert. And we used to serve it with all of our meals. It came with your meal. When you ordered the meal, you got that dessert. Only because I don't like to bake and I don't like to make desserts. So I said, okay, let's just include this dessert with the meal. Then nobody will order dessert. And it worked out real well. So that came well. So we'll get started with that. Let me give my hands a quick wash before we get into this. I did wash my hands before, but... So this is basically starting with cherry vanilla ice cream, or you can use black cherry ice cream depending on what you want. Sometimes you can't find a cherry vanilla ice cream. It's hard to get. But what you want to do is put it in your refrigerator and let it soften up a little bit because you have to mix other stuff in it. Okay, we're going to mix this with some granola, almond extract, or you can use amaretto if you have that and you don't have almond extract. You can use amaretto in there. We're going to use almonds. You can use pistachios if you have those. You can top it with toasted coconut. We'll take you through that whole process. So I have the ice cream.
You can use regular amaretto too, can't you?
This is regular ice cream. If you're into diet ice cream.
Amaretto.
Oh, amaretto. Regular. Where do you get it?
The liquor.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the stuff you drink on the rocks.
Yeah.
You know.
And you can use that instead of this, right?
Yeah. I always have that because I like it in my coffee. So. And I'm going to use little plastic cups for our class, but you could put this in any kind of fancy kind of mug you want. You could also make this ahead. You get all the ingredients mixed in. Okay, put it back in the container or put it in a plastic container and stick it back in your freezer. Okay, or what I do is I did some this afternoon, and what I did as a backup is I put it in the containers and then I just stuck it in the freezer. So you can do this and then they're all ready to go. Okay. So when you see me only making a few of these, don't get nervous because the rest is in there. Okay? So we're going to take some ice cream, and when you're doing it, you could measure, you're probably going to get like a scoop and a half for, it depends on who you're feeding. Okay, if you have regular Italians coming, you want 2 scoops, 3 scoops, you know. If not, you know, 1.5. But the ice cream needs to be a little soft, not mushy. Okay. I'm going to do probably about, this half gallon will make about 8 or 9, you know, so we'll see. We'll see how many it makes. I never measure when I cook, so I just scoop it in. And what's going to happen? The worst thing that could happen is you use it and you have it left over. Oh, that's a shame, right? Have leftover ice cream. But that's like, you know, putting a cork in leftover wine. I said, who has leftover wine? You know, who? I mean, okay, so we got that. I'm just going to put the rest in. We'll see how much it makes. Okay. Save that because we'll need to scoop that. I'll save the container in case we have more than I have cups. Okay, so this is nice and soft. Okay, and that's what you want. You want it so you can stir it. So if you take the ice cream out and just leave it in your refrigerator for, you know, an hour, that's what it will be like. So I took this out of the freezer just before I came, when I got here at 10 to 6. So. Okay, I have some granola, and you can use any kind of granola you like. This is granola that has almonds in it, and you want raisins in it or cranberries. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to put some of that in there, and I'm going to save a little because we're going to sprinkle some on the top. Okay, you could also use toasted coconut on top if you want to do that. If you like coconut, my wife doesn't like coconut, so I never use that. So okay. And I have some slivered almonds. There are some almonds in the granola, but there's not enough for me. So I'm going to add some more. And these are just slivered almonds. You can use chopped almonds, pistachios, whatever you want. Okay, some almond extract. Now you got to be careful with this because this stuff is strong. You know, if you use amaretto, you may want to use a little more because it's not as strong flavored as the extract. Okay. So I'm going to put like 3 capfuls. Okay. And that's basically it. Now what you got to do is get this all stirred up. Just mash it together. It goes really fast if you have a KitchenAid, you know, KitchenAid mixer. Just put it in the bowl and that whips it right together. In 2 seconds you're done. Okay. But I didn't feel like carrying my KitchenAid here, so you know. It was one of the questions I asked if they had gotten a KitchenAid for this kitchen. They said, no, it was on our request list, but it got turned down, so. But, okay. Now, the best way to find out if there's enough flavoring in it is to taste it. So that's what you have to do. So, come on. You're the taste tester. That's what happens when you sit in the front row. It's like church. Just give it a little taste, see if it needs any more amaretto or flavoring. Another shot?
That's good. Perfect.
Perfect?
Great.
Okay. That or me? This? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so we got this going. Now what we want to do is take our cups, and that's it. That's all you do. That's your dessert. Okay? We'll put it in the cups, and then we'll decorate it and stick it back in the freezer. And by the time you have your soup and everything, you'll be ready to go. We'll see how many this makes. So let's see. I'll give about a scoop and a half. This ice cream scoop is little, so just. This is one of the desserts that I like to make if we're having company come over, because you can make it way ahead and it sits in your freezer, and Everybody likes it. I haven't made it for anybody who didn't really like it, so I didn't. And we're gonna top it with a maraschino cherry after we put the rest of the granola on top.
Then you can tell everybody it's healthy because there's granola in it.
Okay, what do we got? 6, 7. Okay, what do we get out of that? 3, 6, 8. So you'll get 8. Okay, from a. Well, it's not really. You have to be careful because it's not really a half gallon anymore. You know, it's short of a half gallon. So make sure you look and see what size you're buying. Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to decorate these with a little bit of granola. Sprinkle it on top. Okay. Going to put a few more almonds on top. These are toasted, by the way. If you want to, toast the nuts, you just put them in a dry frying pan, or in your oven. You can put them in your oven on a baking sheet, but you have to watch them really carefully because it only takes a couple of minutes because the oil starts to come out, and then they'll burn. If they burn, you're lost. You have to throw them away. Okay. Oops, I forgot this one. That's yours, Chuck. I forgot. Okay, we got that. Now I'm going to take some maraschino cherries just to decorate the top and put half of a maraschino cherry on top. I don't really like maraschino cherries. I mean, I like people just eat them. I don't. They're not. I like them either in this ice cream or in a Manhattan. Okay, so you put that right on top just to decorate it. And you one more. I'll put the whole one on there. I don't feel like cutting that. Okay, and then if Jackie, you want to come up and stick these in the freezer for me, please? Wipe down the board. So our dessert's all made, all ready to go. Now I'm going to start on the soup. And again, as we did last week, once the soup is done, you have to squeeze them in there somewhere. Once the soup is done, then we'll let that simmer a little bit. I'll get ready for the next portion, the entree, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so now we're back on page 1. This is basically just a chunky vegetable soup. And remember, if you want to make it chunky, so let me clear some of this stuff out of the way that we don't need. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this pot on medium-high, just to get it heated. And then I'm going to start putting some vegetables in here. I'm going to start with a little bit of olive oil on the bottom, just to coat the pan. You don't want to put a whole lot of oil because it'll float to the top. So just use very little of that. Just over here. So we're going to start with an onion. And remember, we're going to chunk everything. So these are going to be chunky vegetable soup. So it's chunks of stuff, not minced. So just take that in half. Just go maybe a third of the way down. And we're going to try and get the pieces of vegetables all about the same size. Okay, so everything in this soup will be about the same size. Okay, so we have those. And again, this is something, if you wanted to, you could put this whole thing in your crock pot. Just put all of the ingredients in the crock pot, set it on, low for 6 to 8 hours. By the time you get home, it'll be all done. If I'm usually going to do stuff in a crock pot, I do 11 o'clock at night, so that 7 o'clock in the morning is done. So, and then my wife's always yelling at me, "What the hell are you cooking down there now?" Okay, so we got that going. Let me give that a stir. And I'm going to add, at this point, some salt and pepper. Now again, I have the jar on the counter that has 50% salt, 50% pepper. Okay, basically because every recipe says add salt and pepper, so we might as well do it together. And the reason I'm going to add this now is because I want the onions to sweat, which means it's going to draw out all the moisture. And like I said, how do we know they're sweating? They're like people. When they sweat, you smell them. Okay, so then you know the onions are ready. So let that go. Meantime, I'm going to slice up some of the other vegetables. I have in here carrots and celery that I peeled the carrots and cleaned up the celery and washed it. And then you just wrap it in a damp paper towel. And then when you're ready to go, you're all set to go. Okay? Plus then you have a nice little towel to wipe your hands when you're... Okay, so I'm going to chunk the celery and get that in there. And I know it says to add the garlic, but I'm going to wait to add the garlic because I want to make sure that I have a nice bed in there. Because if you don't have a nice bed in there, the garlic will hit the oil in the bottom and it'll burn. Okay, once you burn the garlic, you're done. It tastes terrible. Okay, so I'm just going to go right down these bigger chunks of celery. Just go right down the root. And then actually, this celery came from my garden. I just went and got it out today. It's about one of the only things that the deer did not eat. So if you want to have a deer-proof garden, just plant celery. That's why I don't like it. So celery and eggplant. Okay, those are going in. Okay, the carrots I'm going to cut in half moons, which means I'm going to cut the carrot in half, put the flat side down, and just cut them. So you have like little half circles. Okay, get that in. I have one of those little things that you use like to pick all, they have that little slide thing that you pick it up, but I don't know where it is. I mean, I have one somewhere. If the carrot is small on one end, just go up to that part, like that. And then when you slice it, the pieces will end up being the same size. I don't know if I told you the story. I was teaching the first class that I did, and it was around this time of the year, and one of the classes happened to fall the day before Halloween. So I always talk about being careful with the knife and whatever. So I got one of those rubber finger things that you put on, So I'm yakking, my wife's always telling me, you never look at what you're doing. So, I'm going like this, and all of a sudden I went, wham. And I went, oh my God. And I had a piece of finger on the counter. Wow. I did the wrong thing to do. All the cell phones came out. They were dialing 911. I said, no, it's just a joke for Halloween. Oh my God, it was just like, so yeah. And my wife puts up with me. Okay, so we got all that in. Give that a nice stir. Okay. The onions are starting to turn translucent, so you can see through them. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some garlic in. And then I'm going to add some zucchini. Okay, so for the garlic, oops, garlic overboard. Just put the garlic down, take your hand, and give it a smash, and the skin will come right off. Okay, again, if you have people in your household who don't like garlic, they like the taste of garlic, the flavor of garlic, but they don't like to eat garlic, okay, you could put the cloves in whole, okay? Well, then when the soup is finished cooking, just take the whole cloves out, okay? And then you'll avoid all the agita and everything else that people get, so, okay. Does anybody in here not like to have the garlic? Okay. Well, bring your Tums. Okay, so got that going. Okay, I'm just going to give it a quick chop. You could, if you don't want to go through this process, just get the garlic that's already chopped. It comes in a jar, you know. You could use that. So you're basically looking at about each clove, depending on the size of the cloves, probably about each clove would be like a teaspoon, you know. So you put in as much garlic as you like. You have to figure out how much you like. Okay, put that in. What I usually do with garlic when I get it home is you have those big bulbs, and they're so hard to crack open when you want to get going with it. So I put them in a baggie like this, the whole bulb, and I put it on the counter and I whack it, and then they all come apart. So they're in here, and then you take out as many as you want, and they'll stay in there. So, the garlic, you can't seal the bag because it'll mold. Okay, so leave the bag open, and I just leave it on a shelf in my kitchen. Okay, it'll stay, 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. And if you don't want to leave it on the counter, put it in your bottom drawer of your refrigerator. Okay, you know when it's going bad is when you see the little green thing coming out the end, starts to grow. Okay, then you know you don't want to use it. Okay, because it'll get bitter. Okay, so we got that in. I'm going to put in zucchini. I know, it depends on how much zucchini you like and how big the zucchini is. Can you smell the garlic now? There you go. This is when the custodians start coming down the hall. You'll see them passing by, So this zucchini is fairly large, so I'm just going to use one. Usually I would use like 2 small ones. And again, we want to make it about the same size as the rest of the vegetables. I'm going to add a little bit of pepper flakes just to give it some little tickle in the back of your throat. So not too much. Carolyn, were you in the class when I did that and the sprinkler wasn't on? Whoa. Trying to fish it out. It all went. Everybody ate the soup. They didn't care. So, okay, so get the zucchini going. We do the same thing. I'm going to cut it in half. But this time I'm going to cut it in quarters, okay? Just put it flat, take your knife, just go right down the cutting board. Put them side by side. That's it. Ready to go with that. I'm going to do all the vegetables in so they get nice and coated with the oil and start to cook a little bit before we add the liquid. Okay, so with that going, now we're going to add 2 cans of diced tomatoes with the juices. Don't drain them. We're going to add the juice and everything. So I told you this is real simple. You don't have to do anything. Or if they're on sale, you can buy 1 big can, And I'm not real, if I'm going to make a soup or something, I'm not crazy. A lot of people like San Marzano tomatoes, or if I'm going to make a sauce or a gravy, I'll use the expensive tomatoes. But if you're going to make a soup, just buy what's on sale. The San Marzano tomatoes for a can about this size is about $4. You know, so when you see that on those cooking shows, those San Marzano tomatoes, they're not paying for it. That's why they use it. Okay, so we got that in. Okay, I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit just because now we're going to start adding all the liquids in. Okay, have some vegetable broth. Why can't you make vegetable stock? Who remembers from last week? What is stock made from? It's made from all the, when you make chicken stock, it includes all the bones and, you know, all the skin and all of that. That makes the stock. That's why it's gelatinous when it gets cold, okay, because it has all that marrow, bone marrow stuff in there, okay, so you can't do that with vegetables. So that's why you just have this. Broth, chicken broth, is what's left after you cook the chicken. Like you roast the chicken and you have all the juice on the bottom, that's the broth part. Okay? So people always ask what the difference is, you know. I think the stock has a lot more flavor, you know. So.
Which one's saltier?
Usually it's the stock or the broth.
Stock and broth? I can't hear.
Which one's saltier? A little saltier.
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends on how you make it. You know, like when I make a stock, you know, when the chickens are on sale, like, you know, 69 cents a pound, like a whole chicken, you know, I'll take like 2 chickens and put them in a pot and the whole thing, just throw it in, put the vegetables in it, and, you know, and then I really don't put a whole lot of salt in it, you know. You can control the salt, okay? So when you buy chicken stock, it says low sodium chicken stock. That's the kind you want to buy, because then you can control what you do. Because I don't really cook with a whole lot of salt. I cook with a whole lot of cheese, but I don't cook with a whole lot of salt. Okay, so our soup's going. Okay, I have some. I'm going to use black beans in here. I know the recipe says white beans, but I'm going to put white beans in our side dish. So you're going to have a whole lot of beans tonight. So be careful on your way home. So, and then the only thing we're going to have to add to that, I'm going to add a little bit of water, and then we're going to add some cauliflower. And I'm going to put the cauliflower in once it comes to a boil, you know, and then let it simmer, because I don't want the cauliflower to get mushy. Okay, so. But this is a can of black beans that I drained and, you know, rinsed and drained them. And I like black beans. I'll use them a lot. Okay. And I'm going to add some water to this, because sometimes I find that the stock or the broth is salty when you buy it. It's usually salty, so I'm going to add some water to it. We'll see how that turns out. Not too much. Okay. That. So we're ready to go. So the only thing we have to do is bring this to a boil. Okay. Gonna let that go. I'm going to put the lid on. But I'm going to put the spoon underneath, so if you want to make sure it doesn't boil over, you know, a lot of times you put the cover on, it comes to a boil, it'll go all over your stove. I usually take the spoon and I'll just put it in and it vents it a little bit, so you don't have to worry about it boiling over. Okay, so the only thing we have left to add is going to be our broccoli. Okay, so we got that going. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start the side dish, which will be the couscous. And what you have to do is make the couscous first. Now I'm going to use, there's 2 different kinds of couscous. This is Near East. You can buy it. It comes in different flavors. This is Parmesan. You can get it with herbs and olive oil or whatever kind you want. Okay? Or you can get what's called Israeli couscous or pearlized couscous, which are bigger. They look like little, you know what caviar looks like? That size, that, you know, but it's clear. Okay, so it's a pasta. This is a pasta. Okay, but if you use the small kind like this, I'll show you when I open the package. First of all, it has a little bit of flavoring with it. You can get it plain if you want it plain, or you can get it with the different flavors. Okay, once you bring the water to a boil, you throw this in, put the cover on it, take it off the heat, and in 5 minutes it's ready. Okay, there's no cooking involved. If you get the pearlized couscous, you have to cook that for about 8 to 10 minutes until all the water is absorbed. So you kind of have to watch that, which for me is a problem because I end up doing other things and then it'll burn and so whatever. So we're going to get that couscous going, and then we're going to chop up the vegetables. We're going to make a salad out of it. We're going to make a side salad. So find a pot. And a measuring cup. And all you basically have to do is follow the directions that are on the back of the box. And what this says on here is you need 1 1/4 cups of water and 2 teaspoons of olive oil or butter. Okay, that's all you need. So I'm going to do 2 packages, okay, because this one package will serve, about six people or so, depending on how hungry you are. So we'll get this going. So I need 1 1/4 cups. How many cups do I need altogether? How many? 2 1/2. All right. I'll check with the high school kids. Make sure my wife's doing her job in math. Okay, so 2 1/2. Okay, so we just bring that to a boil. And when you open the packages, has anybody used this before? Yeah, I mean, this it's fairly, you can get it in any store. It's where the rice and stuff is. Comes with the flavor packet, and that's what it looks like. It's real teeny, okay? It's smaller than rice, but it's a nice alternative to having rice or a potato or whatever. And then it takes on, if you get the plain, it takes on whatever flavor you want to add. If you wanted to do it in chicken broth or a chicken stock instead of water, that's what it would taste like. You could use a V8 juice or tomato juice, and it gives it a whole different flavor. Okay, or you can use beef broth, and then you serve it with meat. Okay, so you have totally different flavors each time you make it. Okay, my kids always liked this, so we used to have this all the time. It actually looks like it's smaller than pastina. Have you ever had pastina, that pasta? Okay, that was always a dish that. These are the flavor packets. I'm going to put those in. Pastina was one of those things that my mother used to make when we were sick, because all it is pasta, and it has a little Parmesan cheese, and then you take a egg and you scramble it in, and it's something to eat that's filling, but it doesn't have a lot of stuff that'll make you sick, So even my kids, even now, they're in their 20s. They'll call and say, "Oh, what was our recipe for that pasta, that pastina? I don't feel good." So okay. So, but I should show people how to make that one day. It takes about 5 minutes to make. Okay, so give this a stir. Get that flavoring in there. Now I basically chose the Parmesan flavoring because what we're going to do is once this is cooked, we're going to make a lemon vinaigrette. That's what's going to be on our couscous salad. Okay, lemon vinaigrette sounds really fancy. Okay, all it is lemon juice and olive oil. A little salt and pepper. And then they charge you all kinds of money when you go buy that in the store or go to a restaurant. But I'll show you how to make that in about 2 seconds. Okay, we'll let that come to a boil. I'll get ready with that. So let's see how our soup's doing here. That's coming up nicely, just like to a simmer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the cauliflower. If you don't like cauliflower, you could add broccoli. If you want the color contrast, you could use yellow squash and the green broccoli. So here we have the green squash and the white zucchini, cauliflower. So it's up to you. You can put whatever kind of vegetables you want in here. Vegetable soup. Any kind of vegetables. Okay. Now again, what we need to do at this point is, how do we know it's seasoned right? How do we know? What do you have to do? You gotta taste it. Give it a taste. See if it needs any salt or whatever.
It's good.
Good? Okay. That's good. So we'll let it ride. We'll let it cook. Where's the cover? Okay, as soon as that comes to a boil, we'll add that and we'll be ready to go. I'm going to show you the vegetables we're going to add to that. Just a second.
Do you have to put oil in the pot?
You know what? You can, the directions call to put the oil in it, but I'm going to fluff it with the fork anyway. I'm not going to eat it plain. If you were going to just serve it like that, I would put the oil in it because it's easier. It'll sit, the longer it sits, it won't coagulate. Okay, but we're going to mix this with olive oil and lemon dressing anyway, so you really don't have to. Okay. Okay, so I have some red pepper, white beans. And I'm going to use this jar to make the dressing. I know in your recipe it says to squeeze the lemon juice over in oil and just mix it together. You could do that. But I'm going to actually make the dressing and then pour it over the top. And a lot of the times you see people make the dressing on TV, and they got the little bowl and the whisk and the whisk it all together. Just throw it in a jar and shake it. It's much easier. It just takes less time. So we're going to add to this. We're going to add a red pepper, and if you want to just make sure you don't want to get the pith in here. That's the white part. So take a slice of the pepper and just take your knife and go around the outside. And then cut off the bottom. So if you do it that way, basically what you have is the shell, and you really avoid all the seeds and all the pith part. So the pithy part. You don't want that pithy part in your salad. Okay, so that's the easy way to do that. Okay, and then we're going to cut this again in small pieces. Okay. So just go real quick. And you actually want to get a dice on it. Just move it off to the side. Okay, this is boiling. And add this in. Give it a little stir. Put the cover back on. Take it off the heat. Okay? And that's it for the couscous. It sits 5 minutes and it's done. Now we're just going to get ready to add all the stuff in here. You could serve this warm. You could serve it cold, depending on what you want to use it for. If you wanted to dress this up a little bit, take some diced chicken, some diced shrimp that you have, and throw it in there. Or get some little salad shrimp, little frozen salad shrimp. You can throw it in. Serve it on some lettuce leaves. You can make those little lettuce, those little lettuce sandwiches that are in, so you don't eat the bread. But so you could do that. Serve it on that. Okay, so we got our pepper just about done. When you're cutting, stuff like this, you usually hold the knife at an angle and make sure your hands are like a claw, so if you're going to go close to your hand, that it's going to hit your knuckles like this rather than this, you know. So just a little tip. And always cut the peppers, because they're glossy on one side, put the glossy side down. Okay, so you're cutting through the rough part. If you cut through the shiny part, then the knife tends to slip, especially if the skin is tough on it. Okay. Or if you don't want to listen to me, just cut your fingers. I don't care. So okay, so we got that going. And in here I have white beans. These are just navy beans. You can use navy beans, cannellini beans, garbanzo beans, you know, whatever kind of bean you like. Or if you don't like beans, don't put them in. Okay, so, but I drained them and rinsed and drained them, so they're ready to go. So we have those over there. And then we're going to add, it says to add sliced olives. Okay, so I just bought a can of sliced olives. Okay, real tricky. You know, you can buy regular olives and then stand there and slice them all, or dice them, or you put them in your food processor. You have a little food processor on the counter. Just, you know, put that in and twirl them out. But these are on sale, so it's easier to just buy these already sliced. I'm not trying to compete with Rachel Ray. I'm just trying to give you some hints here. You know, it's just so drain the juice out of that. Does anybody ever find a can opener that cuts all the way around, so you don't have to put the knife in there and pull it up? Do you have one?
Yes, I do.
What kind is it?
Pampered Chef.
Pampered Chef. What was that, $93?
Around the side
It
of
cuts
the can,
around the top.
Oh, cuts around the top. Okay, I have one of those, but it doesn't open all. It doesn't open all the cans. Some cans doesn't work on.
Oh, it separates that seal. That's all it
Okay,
does.
I have to check into that.
They're like $9.
$9?
I think I got
Oh,
mine.
that's not bad. Okay.
When I have a party, I'll order you one.
Yeah, don't invite me to a party. I'm not going to any parties. Okay, and here I have some scallions, green onions, whatever you want to call them, and some parsley, which we're going to add at the end. So let me see how the soup's doing here. Okay. Okay, let me put that on there so that cook comes to a little faster. You can see the couscous is already fluffy. You see, it doesn't take very much time. So what you want to do is just take your fork and just fluff it up. Okay? And that's really what that is. It's all done. Okay? I'm gonna get a bigger bowl. Let me rinse this bowl out. Talk amongst yourselves while I wash this. Because I know what's going to happen if I use that little bowl. I know what's going to happen. It's going to go all over the counter. Okay. So I'm going to take the couscous and I'm going to put it in the bowl. You can see already it's fluffy. It actually took less than 5 minutes to cook, so. Just fluff it up a little bit, spread it out so it cools down a little bit. Leave it there. I'm going to put the peppers in. This is also nice and colorful. beans, olives, and some scallions. Okay, usually I just leave the rubber band on. You know, it comes with that rubber band thing. Cut off the bottom part. If you don't want to use it, you could use a regular onion if you wanted to, or you know, red onion would be nice in here if you diced up some red onion. If you want to get rid of the oniony taste with the red onion, sometimes the red onion, people tell me it's strong. So what you want to do is slice the onion, put it in ice water, let it sit in the ice water for about 5 minutes, and then take it out, and it gets rid of that strong oniony taste. Okay, so. Or you could use chives if you have chives. Okay. Get those in there. Okay. And a lot of this top part you really don't want because it's like all dried out. Oops. Okay, now we're going to make the dressing for this. It's taking a long time to come to a boil, but putting it on that small. Okay. So need some olive oil, lemons, and a zester. We're going to zest the lemons and add that to our dressing. Again, make sure when you're zesting, you only get the yellow part, not the white part. It's pretty bitter. I'm going to throw that in, sprinkle it around. What that does is that gives it a nice fresh taste. You know, you have the canned beans, you have canned olives. You know, that gives you a nice taste in there. I just thought if I was really smart, I would do this right in the bowl. Okay, sprinkle the rest of that in there. Okay, to juice the lemon. These are hard, so I'm going to either put them in your microwave for about 10 seconds or press them on the board. Or throw them around your kitchen or whatever. Play catch with your spouse, throw them around. Everybody always asks me about my wife's cooking. My wife is an excellent cook. But she says, since you have so much fun doing it, I just choose not to do it. You know, so. I remember when we were dating, she wanted to make, one of the first meals that she made for me was a spaghetti and meatball. I mean, meatball. Her family, she's the oldest of 9, so they had like a lot of kids in the family. So when her mother made meatballs, they were this size. Okay, it was like a mini meatloaf. I said, "What is that's a meatball? That's just like a meatloaf," you know. So I always tease her about that. She's like, "That's the way we make them." Because again, hold it up. So you try and get as much juice as you can without getting the seeds. Whew. And when you're making a vinaigrette, I usually use like a 3-to-1 ratio, like the citrus, either vinegar or lemon juice or whatever, 1 part to 3 parts oil. Okay, so you could just eyeball that. You don't. Ooh. If you If you like the taste of lime, you could use lime. You make the same dressing with lime. You make the same dressing with oranges. Okay, so it just depends on what kind of citrus flavor you like. Okay. Okay, and when we make this salad, we're going to make this so that we're not drowning it with dressing. You just want to have a little bit of flavor in there, so you don't want to put a whole lot. Okay, so we have, let's see, maybe about a quarter of a cup of citrus. So I'm just going to add, about that much. About that much. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. And the reason I'm not going to add a whole lot, and I didn't add salt and pepper to this, was because, remember that couscous has Parmesan cheese in it. Parmesan cheese is salty, so you want to make sure that you control that a little bit. Plus you have the olives in there. Okay, so, and then I have to put a little bit of my friend in here, so just because you'll be sleeping by the time you eat this. I wake you up. Okay, just a little dash. Okay, if you want to make this ahead of time and you want it to stay together, put like a half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard in there, and that makes it emulsifies it and it stays together. Okay, that's basis for a lot of it. But we're going to just pour this on. So I'm whisking it now. So, and there you go. So we're just going to pour this on. And that's it. Our side dish is done. Let me get that stirred up. Soup is that'll be almost ready. So again, you just want to get this mixed up. And it has nice color. It's a pretty salad to serve. You could make it, if you don't want to use couscous for this, you can use any kind of small pasta. Okay, like ditalini or small elbow macaroni or, whatever. Okay. Again, we need a taste tester. Chrissy. We're going to see if it needs any salt or pepper or whatever.
Is that really hot?
Okay?
Good.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to put this off to the side. Then the next thing we're going to be working on is our entree. Okay, we have 3 things done already. We have the desserts done, soup's ready to go, the side is done, and it's only 7:25. So, and if I stopped talking, it probably would have been done at 7. But, but whatever. So we're going to start on the pork marsala. I have some parsley here that right before we serve it, I'll do it right now. That I'm going to sprinkle on the top of the couscous salad just to, along with the lemon, that parsley will give it a nice little fresh flavor. So we'll do that. And usually when I do parsley, what I do is I just pick it. I have a twist tie on the bottom, because when you try and cut parsley, if it's all over your cutting board, it's all over. Put a little twist tie or rubber band on the bottom. I wrap it in a damp towel and put it in the refrigerator, and it's ready to go. So just leave the twist tie or rubber band on it while you're cutting it. Just give it a rough chop. And you're ready to go. And all you have the stems, you just throw the whole thing away.
So you can add the feta cheese to that too? The feta cheese.
Oh, the feta cheese. Oh, good thing you reminded me. I would have found it when I looked in the refrigerator. You sprinkle that on top. When I took out the pork cutlets, I would have found the feta cheese and said, okay. So this is crumbled feta cheese. Going to add that in there. And I'm going to probably add about half of this. Oh, what am I going to do with it? So that's about, let's see, this is 6 ounces, so a little less than a cup. You could get feta cheese that's flavored if you want. They have like the kind that has herbs and stuff in it. So if you wanted that flavor, you could do that. This was just plain. Okay. And then we'll stir that in right before we serve it. Okay. Let me give this a quick wash over here. Let me check our soup. Now this is going to be ready to go because this is what you're going to be eating now. Okay, and then I'm going to clean up a little bit and get ready to do the marsala, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, the next thing we're going to make is the last thing is an entree, and this again is very, very simple. Marsala, what marsala is a wine. Okay, it's a fortified wine. Okay, it's sweet. It's fermented, so it's got a sweet taste to it. We're going to mix it with some mushrooms and a little bit of onion, and that's going to make our marsala sauce. I made some this afternoon when I did the other cutlets. We have a backup cutlet. I'm not going to fry 15 cutlets for you right now. So when we do that, I have in this pan, I have some olive oil and a little bit of butter mixed together, just to give it some flavor, and we're going to brown it. So what I do when I'm going to flour anything, because all we're going to put on this is some flour, is take up the foil. We're going to make a little box like we did at the last class, like when you're in kindergarten. And just fold it up. Okay, and you're going to end up with a little box like this, because then when we're finished flouring, because you can't use that flour for anything else once you put meat or chicken or anything in it, so we'll just fold this up and throw it away. Okay. So I have some seasoned flour here, and when I say seasoned, I have salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic powder in here. Okay. I'm going to put that in here. And we want the pan to be fairly hot when we do this. Make sure it's not on. Okay, so I have here pork cutlets. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the cutlets are thin. Okay, you can either get them cut, you can buy the pork loin and have the butcher tell them you're going to make cutlets and they'll slice it really thin for you. Or you just do it yourself. What you can do, it's cheaper if you do it yourself. Buy the pork loin and then cut some slices from it really thin. Take a piece, put it in your freezer for about 20 minutes, and then take it out. And it's not frozen all the way through, but it's frozen enough so you can make some nice thin cuts. Okay? And if that doesn't, you don't want to do that part, get thin cut pork chops or whatever, and then put them in some under plastic wrap, and then whack it with a rolling pin or hammer, mallet or whatever until you get them really thin. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I have some, what I do with these is I use the freezer method on these. Okay, and then I just put them in wax paper. So see how thin they are? And that's what you want to do. You want it to be really thin because they cook up really quickly. I'm just going to dip it in the flour. And I do that, and then I put pieces of wax paper in between. So if the pork is on sale, I do this like when the pork is on sale. You get pork loin is on sale. Sometimes you buy the whole big thing. And you cut it into different purposes. You cut some into chunks if you want to make like a pork stew or a jambalaya or whatever. Pork cutlets, you can leave it whole and make a pork roast. So you do that and then just stick it in your freezer. Okay, if you want to see if this is hot enough, you just take a little bit of the flour, and you can see it start to sizzle. Well, you can probably hear it. And everything is down on this end because the stove goes like this. So see how this works. Okay. And you'll know that's ready when you can smell the butter. You could actually smell the butter. So that's what you want to do. But you don't want the butter to turn brown. So we're going to pop these in real quick. Okay. And you got to work fast because there's only going to take about 45 seconds or less than that on each side. I'm going to do 4 here because I did a backup, and then I'm just going to add the sauce to that. The recipes that you have in front of you are the recipes that I give you are basically designed for 6 to 8 people. So it's just to give you an idea of how that works. So usually what I do is I'll have a backup that I do at home. Like this afternoon I did all the pork and stuff. Now if I can just get the oil on this side of the pan. You can see the color on that already? And that's what you want. You just want it a little bit browned. Okay, I'll do the dishes. Just fold it up, throw it away. That's it. You don't have any dish with flour going all over your kitchen and everything else. So what we're going to make the sauce from is we're going to, once the cutlets are done, we're going to add some onion. I'm going to saute that a little bit. We're going to add some mushrooms, because basically what the sauce is mushrooms and Marsala wine and a little bit of chicken stock. Okay? So as soon as I get these out, we're going to use the same pan, and that's what you're going to do, okay? So basically these are done already, those two. It's got a little bit of color on it. Get these over here. And they're very thin, so you got to be careful that you don't make them real tough. Okay, so I'm going to chop up this onion. And again, you don't have to really dice it or mince it. You just want small pieces. And I have in here mushrooms. If the mushrooms come in those little plastic styrofoam things, and after about 3 days, you go to open the mushrooms, they got all slimy all over them. Okay, you could still use them; they're still good, but I don't like that. I don't like touching them. There's just something about it. If you take the mushrooms and put them in a paper bag, the paper bag will absorb the moisture, and you have a longer shelf life. You'll have about 5 to 6 day shelf life of the mushrooms. So just put them in a paper bag and stick them in your crisper. Huh? Who would think of that? That's why I'm up 4 o'clock in the morning. I have on the nightstand. I always have a little pad and pencil, and my wife goes, "Now what? Now what are you thinking about?" Write stuff down. Okay, so those are out in the same pan. We're going to add the onions. I really married a saint. I'm like a saint. My wife is a saint. I'm like to put up with me. Don't you agree with that? I have some bizarre ideas. I really do. Okay, let me give this a stir here. This part will go very quickly. Okay, we got those going. We're going to throw in the mushrooms. Some of you don't like mushrooms? Oh. Okay, you want to make sure you get them all coated. And what's going to happen is the mushrooms are really going to absorb all of that butter and oil. Okay, don't get nervous about that because we're going to add some flour to this, and we're going to make a roux. Okay, which means it's going to look like glue, and everything's going to stick together, and you'll get nervous and say, "Oh my God, I did something wrong." But that's not nothing wrong with that. Okay, we're not going to add salt to this because what happens when you add salt to mushrooms? Brings the water out, the mushrooms will sweat, and they'll steam, and they will never ever turn brown. Okay, so you'll have steamed mushrooms instead of fried mushrooms. Okay, so you add this, you do that, and if you want to add salt to it, you add it at the end. That's just one of those little tidbits for you, Belle. But why do my mushrooms always look steamed? Okay, so we got that going, and there's a nice little color on that. So I have some extra flour. This is just plain flour. And this is the part where you're going to get nervous because it's all going to stick together. So you're going to add some flour, but this is going to be the thickening agent. That's going to make the sauce thick. Okay, about 2 or 3 tablespoons. And give it a stir. And it's going to look like the paste you made when you were in kindergarten, you know, with flour and water and fingers are all stuck together. That's what it's going to look like. But what you want to do is you want to stir it around until you don't see the flour anymore. Otherwise, if you do it when you can see the flour, what will happen is you'll get a floury taste. You'll get that little gritty taste in your mouth, and you don't want that. So you got to make sure that all the flour is incorporated. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay, now that we got that going. And not very much because the wine is kind of sweet. But the sauce is going to thicken up. You can see in here that it's kind of thick. I'm going to add that to that. So what we want to do now is, this is the Marsala wine and a little bit of chicken stock. And I have some thyme. Okay, this is fresh thyme. So that's the other thing the deer didn't eat, thyme. So I don't know. I'm just going to scrape some of the leaves off. These are real small. What you can do is if you're making a soup or a stew or whatever, you just throw them in. Okay? Because then at the end, you just take them out. Because you'll have the stalks left. Okay? If you want to get fancy and put the herbs in, and you know you're making a soup and you have a lot of herbs in it, you put the whole string in and tie it with a string, like you have different kinds of herbs. That's called the bouquet garni. If you want to be real fancy about it, you may see that in a crossword puzzle, or if you end up on Jeopardy, bouquet garni. Okay, so you'll know that. And they usually tie it together because at the end then you just take it out. Okay, this is the Marsala wine, and this is called deglazing the pan, which means it's going to pick up all the little brown bits on the bottom. And this is when you can start to really smell that wine. Okay. Okay, just let it incorporate into the mushrooms a little bit, and it's going to be real thick. Okay, now we're going to add some chicken stock, broth, whatever you have. Okay. And this you have to adjust depending on how thick you want your sauce. Okay. And just remember, when you make this kind of stuff, any kind of roux with the flour, you'll never know how thick it is until it comes to a boil. Okay? Don't look at it and say, boy, that's really thin. It'll start to boil and it'll thicken up. Okay? So make sure you bring it back up to a boil or a simmer. Okay? So that looks, it's starting to simmer now, and that kind of looks where I want it. So what I'm going to do is add this backup sauce in here that I made this afternoon. Now again, you could make this, put the sauce in a container like this and have it in your refrigerator. And you want chicken marsala or whatever, you can always just have it ready to go. Or stick it in your freezer. Because you can freeze it, yeah, because you'll have a lot of this sauce left because you'll have all these cutlets, but you have a lot of sauce left, so it's a shame to really throw it away. So stick it in a container and freeze it. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the cutlets and I'm going to put them right in there. And then when they're heated through, then you'll be ready to eat. Okay, so we're almost done. Just slide those in. And I have these are the ones I did this afternoon. And they're real thin, so you know what I did is as I was making the sauce, I cooked them and I put them in the oven on 200 just to heat them through. Okay, so put them in there. This is one of those dishes you can get ready if you have company. You can get this ready up to this point and just put it in there and let it heat through and go have your cocktails or appetizers or whatever, and you're all set. Well, that was our class for this session, and I hope you enjoyed watching and learned something along the way. If you could not attend the class and are interested in the recipes, you can email me at nrizzo@roadrunner.com. I would like to thank Chautauqua Lake Central School, Mrs. Amy Redmond, all my class participants, and my wife Kathy for her support in my many crazy endeavors. Thank you.